So what we're going to look at next is handling 500 internal server errors. And what we'll do, we'll just go back to our API briefly. And in our application, inside our activities, and inside the details component, let's just throw an error temporarily just so we can see what happens and what we're doing. So I'm just going to throw a new exception and just say computer says no. And let's take a look at what happens right now when we get an exception that's an internal server error. And this is going to return a 500 when we browse to our details page in our client. So let's go back to our browser and see what happens when we attempt to load a page that throws an internal server error. So I'll just open up the console. And let's go to our activity details, and we need to refresh the page because we're just retrieving this from memory rather than actually making a call to our server. So we need to refresh, and what we get is the 500 internal server error, and we just get our activity not found here. So what we want to do in the case of internal server errors, and certainly for now, what we'll do is we'll use a notification library to let the user know that there's a problem. And the one that we're going to use is React Toastify. It's a very, very simple toast notification that we can add to our React application. And all it gives us is a toast container, which is going to live pretty high up in our application so that it's visible anywhere in our application. And then we can just simply make use of toasts, and we can use an info, a success, a warning, an error, or default. And if we look at the show toast, then we see this appearing in the bottom right hand corner. So it's really simple, and what we'll do is we'll just add this into our project. And what we'll do is we'll head back, and I'll just open up the terminal window, and we'll go on to a new session. And what we'll do here is we'll say npm install. In fact, we need to cd into the client app first of all. And we'll say npm install React and Toastify. And press return. And this goes ahead and installs React Toastify 5.3.1. And what we need to do is add some CSS for this in our index.tsx file. And what we'll do just above our styles.css, we'll say import and then React Toastify and dist and React Toastify.min.css. And then what we'll do is we'll use the toast container inside our app component. So we'll go to app.tsx. And what we'll do is we'll add this pretty high up in our application. Just below the first fragment, we'll just add our toast container. And it doesn't look like this is going to want to automatically import. So I'm just going to say import toast container from React Toastify. And we'll just give it one property, and we'll set its position equal to the bottom right for our application. And we'll stick with the defaults for the rest of it, just to keep things as simple and straightforward as possible. Now what we want to do is we want to go back to our agent file, and we can actually use the toasts from literally anywhere in our application, and they'll be displayed as part of this toast container. So inside the agent.ts file, what I want to do, I want to say if the status is equal to 500, then all we'll do is we'll say toast, and make sure we bring this in from React Toastify. This one does automatically import. And we'll say toast.error, and then we just provide the content for this. And what we'll do is we'll just say server error, and just a hint as well, saying to check the terminal for more info, exclamation mark. Because if we're getting a 500 error back from the server, then our problem is not with our React application. This is a server problem, and our terminal will give us more information about what the problem is. And it'll even tell us what line of code is generating this particular error. So let's go take a look and see the impacts of this. And if I go back to the browser, then we can see that we're getting this toast notification. And if I just refresh the page, then we'll see this again. And because it's a 500 internal server error, then all of the information about this particular problem is going to be contained inside the terminal that's running .NET Run. It doesn't matter how many times you look around in the console for information here. You can look on the response and all you're going to see is our simple little response from the server saying computer says no. And if we look at our terminal inside the .NET window, then we do see the stack trace as well as the server error. And this first part here is where all of the useful information is. And it even tells us what line of code in what class generated the error. And that's all we're going to do for server errors at this stage. We're just going to simply display a notification whenever we get a 500 just to say check the error. And there's one more type of error we'll look at the moment, and that's the response that we can use to notify the user there's a network problem communicating between our client and the API. And we'll take a look at that next.